Want to watch football without the restrictions of blackouts or cable? Check out expressvpn.com to help you get access to all the live games. Sign up today using the link in the description to get 3 free months.
Kyoto Bolt fam. It's the director. I genuinely don't know how to react to this. I don't know what to do with my hands, man. I am not used to this much good news all at once, especially concerning the Chargers. As a Chargers fan of 15 plus years, I got to tell you, this is not normal. It feels like everything that we've asked for, everything that Chargers fans have been pushing for, has happened, is happening, will happen very soon. To add to that impressive list that's kicked off with new head coach for the Chargers, Jim Harbaugh, we got a couple more bits of excellent news today as the Chargers are looking to hire strength and conditioning coach Ben Herbert. One of the biggest under-the-radar signings, I should say, or hirings of the offseason. Of course, I put here in this tweet, y'all realize that half, if not more, of our cursed luck over the past 2 decades has been due to devastating injury. Now the Chargers land one of the best coaches in all of football, not just NFL, college, everywhere, to combat that. Herbert is a certified stud. Of course, Chargers have a good track record with the name Herbert. We're going to keep adding it on. And on top of that, man, just moments ago, I was getting ready to do a video on Ben Herbert anyway. But then all of a sudden, look what drops here, man. Joe Hortiz, my favorite. Okay, I'll be honest, I didn't know much about the GMs. I was very honed in on the head coach, specifically Jim Harbaugh in that story. I got caught up over the past week or so. And I got to tell you, there was a couple of names that really intrigued me. At the top of that list was Joe Hortiz. This man has a very, very decorated resume that I promise you guys, Chargers fans, are going to love. Okay, and by the way, a lot of people excited about Jim Harbaugh. A lot of people excited about Jesse Minter. These last 2 hirings of Hortiz and Herbert, this is up there, dudes. And I gotta tell you, a new GM is never a small bit of news with the football organization. This is a huge, huge deal. So we're gonna be going over that today. The Chargers keep taking those dubs, baby, and it's gonna be a very, very fun offseason to follow what these masterminds have in store. So before we do start breaking this down, shout out to the sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Be sure to use code DIRECTOR to match your first deposit up to $100. We got the Super Bowl coming up. They might have some fun things up their sleeve for the Pro Bowl. I don't think so. Either way, for you NBA addicts out there as well, take advantage of this special new customer acquisition pick right here. Always good time to enjoy yourself via Underdog Fantasy. Before we do kick off, hit us up with a like and sub if you do enjoy this Chargers content. Small amount of time you guys take to hit the like, sub, bell notification. Helps me out a lot. Let's get into this, baby. Lights, camera, action. Breaking news, the Chargers are hiring brand new GM Joe Hortiz and new strength and conditioning coach Ben Herbert, thus adding another stone to the Infinity Gauntlet. It really feels that way at this point, dudes. I honestly don't know how to react to this. This is some of the craziest back-to-back best days of my life as a Chargers fan that I can remember. Of course, just a couple of days ago, a lot of us were talking about Ben Herbert and the likeliness of his coming to the Chargers, okay? A lot of us wanted Ben Herbert to join, the super team that's being assembled here in LA, but not a lot of us thought it was very plausible. Okay, it really seemed like he was going to be staying in Michigan. Of course, definitely made a name for himself out there. Lots of reasons to stay with the Wolverines. And this morning, I woke up to one of the biggest shocks of my life. I'm not going to lie, guys. I was up not feeling too well all night long. I was up until the news broke really early this morning, like 5:30 a.m. Pacific. But it was worth it, dude. Like, it instantly lifted my spirits thinking, oh my God, how did the Chargers pull this off? How did the Chargers get Ben Herbert to agree to move over to the pros, which may be a different, challenge altogether for a guy like Ben Herbert. But at the same time, there was a lot that went into this signing, a lot of background, pieces that are going to have to move. But in the end, it all results in the Chargers getting perhaps one of the most underrated coaches in all of football, maybe at one of the most underrated coaching positions in all of football. Keeping your players on the field and motivated has got to be one of the most important jobs in sports. And it feels like we just got one of the best that I didn't even think was available. I was going to say available. I didn't think he was available. Yet here he is with the Chargers. We got extremely lucky. Now, let me remind you, like I said, new, I would say now head coach, right? They have announced him as the new guy out there in Michigan. Sharon Moore. He fought like hell to keep this dude. And this is a big reason why a lot of us felt like this was not going to happen. Of course, you got guys coming in from the Michigan program that the Chargers were obviously gunning for, that Jim Harbaugh obviously wanted to bring in with his new team, the LA Chargers. But it felt like because of a recent contract signing by Ben Herbert, that it wasn't very likely. Herbert becoming one of the highest paid strength and conditioning coaches, I think maybe in the entirety of college football, especially with what I believe was like a 3, 4, maybe even 5-year contract at $1 million a year, which I do think increased yearly depending on X's and O's, blah, 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 blah. A lot of money on the table. But a lot of us felt like it was probably not going to happen. Sharon Moore, I'm sure, felt like it wasn't going to happen, and he fought. He fought to keep this man in Michigan because of how big of an impact he is for this team. I honestly, and this is something that Jim Harbaugh talked about himself, man. I don't know if the version of the Wolverines that we saw exists without Ben Herbert. This dude, and again, you'll say, what's the strength and conditioning? What are we talking about? Honestly, guys, maybe we'll go to Twitter here for just a second because I do think it's pretty important. There's strength and conditioning, yes. It's very important to keep your players healthy, yes. But take a look at this man, dude. Let's go ahead and turn this thing up real quick.
You ready to compete? Don't matter what the challenge. Doesn't matter what time of day, what the weather's like, how long it's going to take. Whatever we got to do, that's what we got to do. We roll. We roll. We roll. We roll. Blue on me. Blue on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, so we're not going to show the whole clip, obviously. Don't want to get flagged for nothing. But this is a pretty big deal, man. Ben Herbert to the Chargers. This doesn't feel like it's been happening with the Bolts, right? Of course, no knock on the current Chargers strength and conditioning coaches. Of course, there's a lot of guys out there that know way more than I can ever hope to know in terms of that area of their field. But it just feels like something was always lacking because the Chargers were always falling victim to some of the most devastating injuries I've ever seen as a fan. We often talk about the Chargers charging. Part of that narrative has always been the Chargers just lose half their roster over the course of a promising season. We see guys often that, we build up the hype over the offseason. They're a big part of the system. They go down. The Mike Williamses, the Keenan Allens at times, right? The Derwin James at times. Sure, this stuff could still happen. It probably will still happen. But Ben Herbert gives you the absolute best odds to combat that curse that we've been carrying around for decades. And this is a big deal, man. And it just goes to show the reach and the power behind this man right here, Chargers new head coach Jim Harbaugh. Jim got his way, and of course I do think in the end he would. You hear a lot about the fans in Michigan and their sentiment towards the whole move for Harbaugh in the first place. It's actually kind of shocking. At first, yeah, we're all rubbing elbows saying, we want to keep Harbaugh. The Chargers want to sign Harbaugh. Everyone's kind of butting heads in that arena. But after the signing happened, as a matter of fact, I was live when everything went down. We had over 2,000 people in that chat reacting to the signing of Jim Harbaugh. And we had a good number of Michigan fans come in and actually congratulate us and tell us that, hey, man, I may not be wearing the powder blue, but we are pulling for Jim Harbaugh this season. Honorary Chargers fans spread across Michigan. It's kind of interesting to see the support behind Jim Harbaugh. And it makes me believe that there's got to be some method of that thinking, within the organization of Michigan as well, in hoping Jim Harbaugh the best. And honestly, he's earned the right to do this. He's earned the right, after bringing a national championship to Michigan, to take his guys that he assembled, that he built up, with him to the pros to chase this new dream of a Lombardi title. I think he's earned it. And it feels like a big part of that, if you were to ask Jim Harbaugh, was Ben Herbert. I just saw an interview, of course, getting ready to take a shower. Took my brother out to a birthday dinner or birthday lunch this morning. All of this news was starting to break. I was like, okay, we're gonna break the news later when it comes to Ben Herbert. Luckily, we waited because obviously we want to talk about Joe Hortiz now. But in that time, I watched an interview with Jim Harbaugh talking about the first time he met Ben Herbert, how Ben Herbert is one of the best hires that he's ever made, how Ben Herbert is a big reason why the identity and the culture of the Wolverines exists at all, why this team is so hard-nosed and physical, why this team is prepared week in and week out to go tackle the giant that is success, that is momentum in football. He gave a lot of credit to Ben Herbert, talking about his intensity. And it really feels that way. When you take a look at Ben Herbert's, hype videos and stuff like that, behind the scenes looks, this dude is intense. It kind of reminds me of a documentary I watched this last winter, maybe this last spring, on the Florida Gators in the Tim Tebow days. You guys take a look at that workout program. It was insane. It was insanity. It looked crazy. I've never seen anything like it in my life. Sure, when you think of strength and conditioning, you think of the ins and outs of okay, they're in the weight room. They're going, over nutrition. They're going over this and that. They're staying fit. They're staying healthy. This is completely, it's like a boot camp. It's like a boot camp for insane people. The kind of drills that they have these guys running. And I see the same thing in some of the behind the scenes looks of what Ben Herbert's got going on, at least had going on with the Michigan Wolverines. This team just got turned up to 11. I hate to say it on behalf of some of the players. They may not be as optimistic about this as everyone else is. I may be not at first, because it does mean that they're about to work their butts off. That things just got nuts, right? What do they say? That's one of my favorite lines in the new Flash movie. The movie kind of sucked, but I love that part with Batman. He takes a look up. He's like, you guys want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. It really does feel like we're about to get nuts, man. And Ben Herbert is going to provide that culture shock at the strength and conditioning position more than anybody else could in the NFL. Maybe I dare say in the college, in all of football. The culture shock is coming. And the overarching moral of the story here is that this team's going to get very physical, because if Ben Herbert is anything, he promotes physical, hard-nosed, aggressive football. And a lot of that starts in the weight room, guys. I promise you, a lot of that starts in the weight room. And Ben Herbert is the coach's coach to make that happen. He's the Jim Harbaugh of that coaching position. It's insanity that he's with the Chargers right now. Last thing that I'm going to mention about Joe Herbert. A big bravo to him and what he's accomplished. He does provide us, Ben Herbert, he does provide us the best opportunity to avoid this, which has been our curse for several years. It's going to happen. It's probably still going to happen on some way, shape, way or form or whatever, but he's going to help us combat it. And I think some of the best evidence behind that is what he is going to cost. Like I did mention, he's under contract still with Michigan. The Chargers, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, are going to have to buy him out of that contract, which I think started at $1 million a year and climbed from there. So not only do I think they have to buy that out, again, I'm not quite sure how it works in translation between the NFL and college football. I think something's going to have to go down there. But the Chargers, without a doubt, are going to have to pay him the most money for this coaching position in the NFL. So this Avengers, this Infinity Gauntlet stones or whatever that continues to become assembled here, gets another piece in Ben Herbert, and it's probably one of the best, most underrated pieces you're going to find in terms of hiring this offseason. Welcome to the team, Herbert. You got a good one, and Justin Herbert. The Herbert's about to get to work. It's going to be a fun experience watching this culture shift starting in the locker room and then onto the field. We are so lucky. We're so lucky that Herbert's with this team right now, man. I got to tell you, it's absolutely fantastic. But that's just the first part of news today. And again, good things happen to good people. I was thinking of texting my brother. I was like, hey, man, I know birthday and all that. can we move this? Something big happened with the Chargers. I want to make a video. No, we decided to take him out anyway. And we were rewarded for that because as we were out to lunch, the news broke of another huge name coming to the Chargers that we get to cover today right now in this video. Welcome to the Chargers, Joe Hortiz, brand new general manager for the Los Angeles Avengers Assembling Superchargers. Oh, yes. Sorry, guys. It's just crazy. It's crazy to think how many dubs we've been taking the last week. I'm beside myself right now. This is insanity. This is insanity. Like I mentioned, I was a little behind on my GM research as I was so deep into the Jim Harbaugh craze and research, and honestly, just the rah-rah getting the fan base screaming as loud as possible. We probably could have done a little bit more research on the GM candidates, and I did a couple. But the one that instantly stuck out to me, thanks to a video that we found online, I think it was the Giants that were trying to recruit him a couple of years ago. They went through and they kind of easily broke down why Hortiz is a great candidate. And I'm going to borrow a couple of excerpts from that video, okay? Just quickly here when we start off. Some of the things to note for Joe Hortiz. 26 years experience in the NFL. 26. Now, of course, yeah, that's nothing too special, right? We see guys like that all over the place. But with an organization that carries with it the merit and reputation of the Baltimore Ravens, who have been a wildly successful team for as long as I can remember. All right. I grew up in, I guess, when football really entered my foresight and my priorities, it was more the Joe Flacco era, right? Which he had a very great career out there. Now enter Lamar Jackson, who's been fantastic. But if there's been one hugely successful trait surrounding Joe Hortiz in that time, honestly, dude, the players have been fantastic. The draft has been fantastic. The free agent acquisitions have been fantastic. The building of new systems and schemes has been fantastic. I don't remember what the head coach's name was before John Harbaugh. Bollick or something like that. But Harbaugh and that dude, completely different coaches. Hortiz was able to go in there and adapt to the situation, adapt to the new quarterback change. I mean, what more drastic of a change have you seen in the last few years than Joe Flacco and Lamar Jackson? Those two guys, those two quarterbacks, they deserve and need completely different systems to thrive. And Hortiz played a hand, a big one, in making that happen. He's got 20 years in college scouting experience. 20 years, dudes. 20 plus, I think, by the time this interview came around. This is a college scouts savant. I don't know what you want to say about it. Like, the dude is as well equipped as you're going to find in the NFL to bring in the best of the best. And boy, howdy is a good year to do that, man. Explain that in just a second. 15 playoff trips in his time with the Ravens. 2 Super Bowl rings. Dude's been around some greatness, man. And I think the biggest connection that we can all assume is being linked between Hortiz and the Chargers right now is the link of the Harbaughs, which unfortunately the Baltimore Ravens losing to the Kansas City Chiefs knocks them out of the tournament this season. I do expect him to be back. But it does allowed us, I should say, to get in the same room as Hortiz and get this contract signed as soon as possible, because I got to imagine he would have been in high demand. And, of course, his connections to Jim Harbaugh via his brother John Harbaugh, of which he worked with 16 years with the Baltimore Ravens, had to have played a significant role here. Some of you guys will say, but what? Is that really a thing? It actually is. The only reason the Chargers have their brand new defensive coordinator in Jesse Minter, which you guys, if you didn't catch that video, apologies for the microphone. Obviously, we got things fixed now. If you guys haven't seen that video, definitely check it out. But a big reason why we have Jesse Minter at all is because of John Harbaugh, his brother. Jim came to him at a time of need in Michigan and said, hey, I need to reshape this defense. I want an NFL caliber defense, or even systematically tailored defense in Michigan. Who you got that can help me out? And John Harbaugh, maybe not directly with Jesse Minter at first, handed over the reins with Mike McDonald. Eventually that turned into Jesse Minter, which eventually turned into the DC of the Los Angeles Chargers. That exchange happens. And I'm sure we might see some Chargers heading over to Baltimore at some point if he calls upon, the Viking whistle or horn or whatever at some point. If I'm sure John and Jim are going to be working hand in hand for a while in the NFL until they play each other. Of course, that's going to be a big game this season. But that's, I think, the biggest reason why he was on my radar so high. Not just because I loved his resume, but because I felt there's a genuine chance that it would happen. So he's worked with Harbaugh for 16 years. Of course, there's got to be some kind of relationship with Jim Harbaugh as well. But also, you got to mention that he worked with Jesse Minter, the new DC, for 4 seasons as well. Minter came from the Baltimore system. He worked there for 4 years, I think, as a DB coach. I don't remember. Lots of experience, lots of time spent building defenses, building teams with Minter and Hortiz. It's a fantastic fit for the Chargers and one to get very excited about. Now, one big thing that Chargers fans, myself included, will tell you when we're looking for a GM is, what does this guy draft like? Okay, that's probably the biggest thing that a lot of us are asking ourselves in terms of a GM. Because, of course, we just got out of the Telesco era, which, let's be honest, it had its ups and downs. Maybe didn't hit 100% of the time, but it did provide us Justin Herbert. It did provide us Derwin James. It did provide us Keenan Allen, Joey Bosa, some of the best Chargers ever to play the sport. I do have to point out, though, that in those instances that we did hit on a huge player, it does feel like the Chargers went with best player available, best talent left on the board. And not like, Quentin Johnston, man, this guy's the best talent left on the board. You're crazy if you think it wasn't Jordan Addison. And again, I hope QJ works out in the long run. But really, honestly, and truthfully saying, hey, man, I know we don't need, outside of quarterback, I know we don't need this position. But we're going to take it anyway because he's the best talent on the board. Maybe we don't need another wide receiver. We do, but maybe we don't. But this is the dude. We're going to take him. Maybe we don't need another tackle. Yes, we do. But you guys know the point right here I'm trying to make. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to this man. He's going to stick and pick, and he's going to get the best talent available. And it's because of his experience, right? Here he is, right, standing next to the draft pick I'm sure a lot of Chargers fans wish we took. We saw Flowers light it up yesterday in the AFC Championship game. Of course, he would later go on to, bust his hand wide open in frustration. You can't be doing that. But still, the talent and his chemistry with Lamar Jackson is super evident. That was a great pick for them. And he just does this over and over and over again. You can't stop this man from making good picks. And for more likely than not, it's because he takes the value that's in front of him. Using his 20 years of NFL scouting as an experience as a buffer towards that, his last 5 years spent as a player personnel, director player personnel, he knows what he's looking for. He knows what it takes to build a team around a specific system. And Jim Harbaugh coming into the picture with Jesse Minter, Ben Herbert, I'm sure he's got a really good idea of what he wants to do. He's going to grab value. He's going to grab nasty, mean, physical value at that. And that just kind of pushes the Brock Bowers narrative even further on the Chargers. But before we get into all that, I kind of want to show you guys just the art that this man has put together over the last several seasons. All right, so here's Hortiz, been with the team, the Ravens, since 1998. 1998, finally making the jump over to the Los Angeles Chargers in 2024, I should say. Very, very impressive resume, okay? Director of player personnel up until recently, from 2019 until now. So let's take a look at some of the draft picks that he has helped shape and pick with the Baltimore Ravens these past few seasons. Some of the names that just kind of stick out to us, right? Zay Flowers, obviously great. Simpson, he's going to turn out to be pretty good. We'll see how the rest of this rookie class looks for the Ravens coming up. Take a look at this draft class, man. Kyle Hamilton. Feels like a Derwin James pick, right? I think Derwin was picked, was it 17? I don't remember. In the teens, I do believe, though. Here's Kyle Hamilton, which these guys do so much of the same thing, right? Very similar players. Let me actually make this a little bigger so you guys can see the round here. Great pick there. David Ajabo. Great pick there. Travis Jones. Daniel Falele. Man, there are some names scattered. Isaiah Likely in the 4th round. Are you kidding me? Likely is turning to be a beast at this point, man. Absolutely insane, some of the value that you're seeing all over his drafts. Rashad Bateman, Odafe Owe, Ben Cleveland, for crying out loud, in the 3rd round. Ben Mason, the fullback, which I think is going to be connected to the Chargers. More on that later. He's just a name that stuck out to me. 2020, Patrick Queen, J.K. Dobbins, Metabuke. I know this is a great player, okay? Mad Beast, right, is his nickname. Absolutely fantastic pick in the 3rd round. Devin Duvernay. Get out of town, dude. Geno Stone in the 7th round is ridiculous. Come on. Hollywood Brown, sure, he got traded, but he would have been great with Justin Herbert. Ben Powers, Justice Hill. You can make a case for Miles Boykin. And then obviously Lamar Jackson, the man picked at the bottom of the 1st round in 2018. Franchise-altering pick right there. Orlando Brown, who ended up being a huge trade for them. Mark Andrews in the 3rd. Come on, dude. Anthony Averett. Deshaun Elliott. Absolutely insane, man. And it just goes on and on and on and on. Remember, this guy's been with the team since 1998. Sure, maybe he plays a bigger hand in the players selected from, 2001 and forward. Pro Scout in 2021. Area Scout in 2005. National Scout in 2008. Director of College Scouting from 09 to 18. Man, that's a long time. Player personnel from 19 to 24. This is insanity, dudes. His resume speaks for itself in terms of drafting. It's absurd. It's absurd to see this man and what he's helped shape with the Baltimore Ravens these past several seasons. The one big trait, man, that I got to tell you that gets me super amped, is the overarching theme here with the Chargers and these hires. Okay? Physicality. Joe Hortiz has helped shape Super Bowl caliber rosters, not just with value, but with physicality. And honestly, it's kind of come into the shape of trades and stuff lately, too. Of course, maybe he doesn't play a huge hand in that. Maybe he does. But I think the Roquan Smith trade of this last season, one of the best I've seen pan out in a long time. That's the kind of physicality I think we're looking to add to the team over the next couple of seasons. For the foreseeable future behind Hortiz, man. That's a huge characteristic, not just behind Hortiz, but behind Harbaugh and Minter and Ben Herbert. It's insane to think about the 180 that this team is about to take in terms of identity. Because Hortiz has always targeted hard-hitting, aggressive, physical players. And that indicator of change for the Chargers is a very, very good one. I don't want to say the Chargers have been soft. I don't think they have been. But they've not been this version of themselves. They've not been the version with Ben Herbert and Joe Hortiz and Jim Harbaugh and Jesse Minter. It's about to get nuts out here. So to close out this video, keep this in mind, man. If this doesn't work, nothing is. Because in my opinion, we got the best head coach out there that we could have possibly hoped for the last 10 years. We got the best of the best. We got one of the best defensive coordinators you could hope for. We got the best strength and conditioning coach you could hope for. We got one of the best GMs you could have hoped for. We're still waiting on offensive coordinators, sure. But this is nothing short of the Infinity Stones, of the Avengers. We're bringing the band back together. I don't know what to tell you. This is one of the most impressive assemblies of talent I've ever seen. One of the most impressive casts of coaches I've ever seen, not even just for the Chargers, for anybody. This is insanity. What we're seeing is being built in Los Angeles right now. But at this point, dudes, if this doesn't work, nothing will, because this is it. The change is going to be quick. It's going to be evident, and I think it's going to be successful right off the bat. Congratulations to the Chargers for finally getting out of their own way and making something like this happen, because right now, guys, consider both barrels loaded as we see this Super Bowl caliber organization take shape. Because one big thing, guys, that I got to tell you that I think goes underrated and under-talked about is the fact that Jim Harbaugh not only brought his teams that he coached to success, but left an everlasting footprint of success in those organizations. Stanford went from nothing to something under Harbaugh and kind of stayed that way. San Francisco went from nothing to something under Harbaugh and stayed that way. Michigan went from nothing to something under Harbaugh, and I do expect it to stay that way. This is a dramatic shift, not just for this team for the next 5-6 years, but maybe forever. And it starts by the culture that's being built by guys like Jim Harbaugh, Jesse Minter, Ben Herbert, and now Joe Hortiz as well. Get excited, Chargers fans. Our time's come, baby. Let's go. Let's go! Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. If you like what you saw here, hit us up with a like and sub on your way out. Till then, keep your eyes peeled. We're taking a look at who the Chargers could be bringing in for offensive coordinator. And then, of course, we will be live on Thursday for the press conference of Jim Harbaugh and his entrance into the Los Angeles Chargers as their new head coach. We'll see you guys next time. As always, bolt up, stay frosty. Welcome to the Bolt fam, Joe Hortiz and Ben Herbert. It's going to be a hell of a time, baby.